The Psychological Consequences of Bad Sportsmanship by Paul Ohanian. How we doing, people? Figured no better time to read this article than today because currently my ladies that I coach are in the playoffs, and it's hilarious the type of behavior that I observe, especially because people are just taking it more seriously. So let's go through this one. The decline in sportsmanship has significant psychological and developmental consequences for young athletes. Poor adult behavior, whether from parents, coaches, or speculators, creates an environment that is not conducive to learning, enjoyment, or emotional well being. We asked three leading professionals in sports psychology and mental performance about these negative effects and how to cope with them. So we can see that the impact is great enough that we need sports psychologists and true professionals to even get around those barriers. But one of the big preventative measures that we can take as a parent is just making sure that we're not displaying what is objectively poor behavior and not thinking that we are so special because we think our daughter is better or we think our daughter is not good enough. There is no reason for y'all to be coaching from the sidelines, coming up to coaches, giving negative comments anytime because it is unnecessary unless you are doing everything that you can at home. And it is unreasonable to expect more from your daughter than she has to give. But these are typically going to be the reasons that we create environments that are not conducive to their learning, enjoyment, or emotional well being. Process versus outcome. Increased competition, social media influence, and emphasis on personal or financial gain over personal growth were cited as contributing factors. Quote, there's a win at all cost mentality with a focus on outcomes rather than process, said Dr. Andrew, a Philadelphia area sports psychologist and member of the USA Lacrosse Sports Science and Safety Committee. Quote, when you focus on stick development for a 12-year-old, you don't worry about missing the ball during a game. Parents should ask themselves why they got their child into sports in the first place. Quote, it's because you recognize sports teach them values and responsibility. It helps them grow psychologically, emotionally, and socially, said Dr. Jonathan, a Boston-based sports psychologist and former lacrosse player who works with the NFL's New England Patriots. Quote, if that's the case, you've got to let that process happen. I think it's so interesting that they're highlighting the focus of increased competition and social media influence paired with personal and financial gain. It is so interesting coaching in the women's lacrosse community because what is special about these athletes is not that they can do the same things as boys can do. It's that they are their own entities and that they play the game with care for each other. It's unfortunate that the level of competition has erased the care for other being your competition. I see all the time other girls are cross-checking us in the back, pushing us over, and then they just walk away like it was something that was supposed to happen in the game. Meanwhile, I've taught my girls that we are supposed to pick up every competitor that we knock over because that's not our intention. And I've seen my younger players do this to their detriment where they will stop, they'll pick up their competition while someone else runs past them with the ball and potentially scores a goal. I don't get mad that they scored. I actually thank my player for showing sportsmanship because as they get older, I know that these girls are at increased risk of dropout, knee injuries, potential mental health issues, and I just need them staying in a comfortable and happy environment before they fall off the edge. To add to this, I love that we're focused on why parents are actually bringing their kids into the sport and how we are supposed to be teaching them values and responsibility. It's not that responsible to win because anyone wants to win, and usually if we're doing it at all costs, we're doing it without values and without responsibility. Helping youth grow psychologically, emotionally, and socially should be our only focus. But the thing is, we're seeing that this is how sports psychologists are taught to think, and they have to go through a lot of education and further through their own process. A lot of the coaches that I observe leading their players are only focused on their own business, trying to increase the popularity and notoriety of their own program, and for their own personal gains, whether that be their players getting more status or themselves getting more status. As I have seen these other teams around us get hyper competitive, I have made sure that my girls continue to focus more on being great teammates, developing as great people, improving their communication, and giving a great effort while having fun. It's hilarious that we are doing this and still beating our competition. Again, while we are seeing our competition work their absolute hardest to beat us, it continues to show that we are on the right path, doing the right thing, especially when we continue to get new girls into the program and we have the girls that are in our program preaching with pride to the girls around them at their schools and any of their other environments that lacrosse is where they're getting their confidence and their social construction from. Trigger points. Dr. Stephanie emphasized that disruptive behavior from parents can trigger anxiety, embarrassment, and shame in young athletes, which can have lasting psychological effects, especially so if there's a family history of violence. Quote, "It's hard for a child not to hear their parent's voice," said Coakley, a certified mental performance consultant and senior associate athletic director at Temple. Quote, "That's the voice they've heard their entire life." The effects differ by age and developmental level, Wilanian explained. Quote, "For young kids, it can impact social skill development and engagement with a society where rules are in place." He said, quote, "For teenagers, we start to see more of an individual impact of self-criticism, anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. When they try to meet expectations that are not realistic, that can lead to unhealthy thoughts about oneself and then behavior that tries to change that in some way." I think it's so interesting that they highlight how hard it is for a child not to hear their parent's voice because I see a ton of parents that don't understand this. They want to sit and stand as close as they can to their child, thinking that their input is important and that they're going to make a difference in their game. And yes, they are correct, but it's not always going to be a positive influence. A lot of the time we see it be a negative influence because a kid is trying to make a play where they need to focus. If they're trying to pick it up, if they're trying to catch it, that is a focus intensive exercise. And at the same time, they're hearing from everybody, catch it, catch it, catch it, go, 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 take the shot, take the shot. And immediately before they can even go through their own thinking process and then executing, they're stopped, they think other thoughts, and then they do something that they wouldn't have naturally done. After they do that, they start to doubt themselves because it is themselves that gave the effort, and then they get disappointed. It's so interesting to hear that this directly impacts self-criticism, anxiety, depression, and eating disorders because those are all things that have to do with mental clarity and decision making. And then lastly, to finish up, what can athletes do? It's unfair to ask kids to do the parenting, but if they're up to it, they can be powerful change agents. Quote, "When my 6-year-old calls me out on something, it hits a little bit different than when my wife does it," quote, Jenkins said. And it's completely unfair to ask the kids to do the parenting. That's why as coaches, we need to actually have the development and then the willingness to step in. Going back to the last point, when I hear my parents on the sideline and they are speaking up too much and they are saying things that are influencing the game in a negative way, I don't yell more at the kid. I yell over to my parents on the sideline, "Thank you for the energy, but let's please calm down." They can usually hear that. They usually calm down. They then start to enjoy the game. They let me do the coaching, which is relatively effective. And then the kids start enjoying themselves, having a better time. And then at the end, they have appreciation that their parents could take the same feedback that they're expected to, and that they could make the changes that they needed to. Also love the fact that we're talking about kids calling out their own parents. A lot of the time, kids are afraid to speak to their parents, and I understand because their parents will come down with this, "Hey, I'm smarter, I have the intellect, I have the wisdom." But when we as adults can be open to the criticism and feedback that kids can give us, a lot of the time we can see that they are being honest and they are being pretty fair. And so kids, be willing to speak up for yourself. "Hey, dad, it's really confusing to hear you talk at the same time that I'm trying to play lacrosse." If you are struggling to get that message across to your parent, you should have a coach that is supportive enough to help you make that influence or that has already tried to make that influence. That is our responsibility, coaches. Tell your parents how their behavior makes you feel, but don't do it in the heat of the moment. Quote, "If I'm going to fix a boat, it makes no sense for me to fix it during a storm," Jenkins said. Quote, "Fix the boat when the water is calm." Ask them to watch games from a spot that's further from the field or bench area. They should never be in the bench area. I have had to tell multiple parents from other teams this. Thankfully, never my own parents because we do that before the game, but never in the bench area. Invite extended family members, aunts, uncles, godparents, who could help regulate your parents. Quote, another adult who might be more grounded and in control, Coakley said. Quote, they don't have as much stake in the outcome. They are just there to support you, end quote. And I think it's fantastic when these young people can have adults around them that are more grounded and in control. But unfortunately, that I am seeing is that there are less and less. And a lot of us are playing into that game of, hey, we want the outcome, we want the success, we want the notoriety, we want the victories. But at the end of the day, we are all here trying to help a young person navigate life. And if you could see, even in an example like myself, where I was so passionate, so committed to the game of lacrosse, yes, I'm still happy to coach as often as I can, but lacrosse is not my entire life today, and it will not be the entire life for your kid, even if they break all the college records. At some point, there is going to be the need to evolve into a more mature being that has all these abilities that we should not prevent them from achieving. So please, parents, I ask you to sit down with your child and ask them tonight, have I done everything that I can do to support your growth psychologically, emotionally, and socially? After we get some of that information or before, we're also going to ask more follow-up questions and to add, what can I do during your games and during your practice sessions to help take pressure off of your shoulders and grow more as an individual? Thank you for your time. Have a great day. I know that your child will thank you. So you're welcome.